From our studio in Atlantic City and tonight from the Tropicana Casino Resort, I'm David Spatz, and coming up next, we'll chat with daredevil Nik Wallenda on tonight's edition of Curtain Call, and it all starts right now. Well, 19 million people saw this gentleman do what people do every day, cross from the United States into Canada, only he did it on a high wire. And on August 9th, about 150,000 people saw him take a leisurely stroll across the beach, about 100 feet up in the air. So it's amazing that we're able to get Nik Wallenda back down here on the ground. Nik, welcome back.
Thanks for having me on again.
All right, so before we talk about the show you're doing here, let's talk about the two things that put you in the spotlight over the past few months. Number one, the walk across Niagara Falls.
Yes.
An amazing feat, in and of itself. But I know you weren't happy with ABC's demands that you wear a safety harness. First time in your life, right?
That's correct. They came in 2 weeks prior to the event after we had all signed contracts. Everything was done, signed and sealed, and they came in and said, you have to wear a safety tether or we're not going to air this. And it was hard to take because I had changed two laws in two countries that were over 100 years old without having to wear a safety harness.
Oh, I didn't realize there were laws in countries?
No, absolutely. There was a law in the U.S. and a law in Canada that was over 100 years old banning stunting or any stunt activity over the falls. Or near the falls. So that was the biggest challenge, I thought. And then here we go, my partner of all people come in and say you have to wear a safety. So it was very disheartening. Too late in the game for me to find another network at that point to do it. So unfortunately we had to design a tether. I had my engineers design it. Tried it on about 16 hours before the walk for the first time, and never really tried it on a wire, just down low for about maybe 3 minutes, and that was it.
Yeah, you weren't happy. I mean, I know that during the walk, you were in communication with your dad.
That's correct.
And I remember your words, I feel like a jackass.
Yeah, that's right.
Up here.
Yeah,
was it that noticeable to you? Did you really feel
absolutely. It? It's 7 generations and 200 years of my family, and we never wear safeties. Mm-hmm. So to have to do it in front of a billion people saw that in 24 hours is, it was more of a personal thing. I got millions of messages or thousands saying how incredible it was and how inspiring it was, but it was a personal thing to me. But I'm planning on the Grand Canyon, and trust me, I'll find a network, and I think I've found that network already that I should be signing within the next 2 weeks here that will not make me wear a tether.
And part one of the contract is going to say I'm not wearing a tether.
That's correct.
That's number one.
That's absolutely right. That was the first negotiating as we went into negotiations with new networks and with all the networks was, who's going to step up and let me do this without a safety?
Well, the reason you're here at the Tropicana and you're here in Atlantic City is because Tony Rodeo, the president and CEO of Tropicana Entertainment, was in a restaurant and went to the bar that night on June 15th and made them change the channel from a baseball game to your walk. And at first the people are complaining, and then he said they sat there like enraptured watching what you did. And that's when the ideas started popping.
Yeah, absolutely. And then from that to a phone call to here we are sitting down here in the Tropicana for for a 6-week total run all the way till September 22nd. And so far enjoying every minute of it.
How did the beach walk come to be? Was that just a natural extension of,
every time that I come and do a show for a city, I try to do something unique, something special. And Tony said, hey, what do you think about doing a walk over the beach? And I thought, hey, it's something that I don't think has ever been done as far as I know. We've done it over boardwalks and we've done it, in cities, but never over a beach like that. And little did we know at the time the challenges to get cranes of that size over the boardwalk, let alone on the beach without getting stuck. And there were many, many logistical challenges, but I have to say the entire city, the mayor, and everybody just came together and worked together to make it a successful event.
And quickly, they did it. I mean, usually things take a long time in Atlantic City, but this thing came together inside of about a month.
It did, and everything just fell into place. Actually, the cranes were on the beach, and we were getting ready to set up the cable, and someone from the city walked up with the permits saying, okay, you guys are permitted to go ahead. So it was, last minute, but everybody came together, and it, became a successful event. Over 150,000 people are said to have been there.
Did anyone come to you and say, you're going to wear a safety harness when you do this beach walk, or did they know better?
No, they didn't. No, I think they knew better. I think they, it had to do with, executives are scared of, and it wasn't about me so much, it was about everybody watching. What would the effects be? But again, we've trained our entire lives for this. We've trained to catch the wire. If there's an issue, I'm not going to go to the ground, I'm going to go to the wire and hold on, and we've got backup rescue plans in place for every walk. So, But no, that question didn't come up.
Right. 7 generations of Wallendas have been doing this. Some have lost their lives. Do you think about that when you get up there, whether it's here in the showroom 20 feet up or 150 or 200 feet up?
Yes. No, I think about it only paying tribute to them. Recently, my great-grandfather fell to his death in 1978 in San Juan, Puerto Rico. And last year we went back, and I say we because me and my mother went back and recreated the exact walk. Everything I do is to pay tribute and respect to him. We've looked at that and studied and learned why these things have happened. The 7-person pyramid had to do with the front gentleman and a bad habit that he had.
That was in 62,
That was
wasn't it?
in 62, that's correct.
In Detroit.
And then my great-grandfather lost his life. He was 73 years old. He had a double hernia and an injured collarbone, and he was still walking the wire. And the truth
and 30-mile-an-hour winds or something? I mean,
it was
very windy.
but it really wasn't winds. It was more, he did everything that he should have. He went down and grabbed the wire, but he just didn't have the strength with the double hernia and an injured collarbone at 73 to hold on. He wanted to end his life. I mean, he didn't want to end his life, but he wanted, that's how he wanted to die. That's how he wanted to go. So I don't want to go that way. I don't plan on living that way. I plan on retiring at a decent age. I'd say by 55, 60 at the latest, I plan on being fully retired.
But you're 33 now, and it's easy to say that when you get to that age.
Well, and that's one of the challenges is we have passion and love what we do. So it's hard to give it up. It's like telling a golfer that it's time to, put down the clubs, or tell an artist it's time to put down the brush. It's hard to swallow. But as long as I prepare for that now, that there is a time where I'll have to retire, and also use my energy to help others. We and my wife are planning on opening up a circus school in the inner city, possibly in Dallas area, where local kids can come and be inspired that even though it seems impossible to walk on a line the size of a nickel, it's not impossible, and through anything in life, as long as you set your mind to it, you can achieve your goals.
When you're up there, whether it's above Niagara Falls, whether it's above the beach, whether it's just here up to 20 feet above the stage, you use a balance pole, 24-foot balance pole. Could you do it without the pole? I mean, how?
Yeah, of course. I walk a wire without a pole. I was up here today walking without a pole. But when you're in that sort of environment with the winds and the way the cable moves, it's just better judgment to use a pole more than anything. And something that I've trained my entire life for. As a matter of fact, it was a no-no to walk without a pole when I was a child. I wasn't allowed to. And I say child, I started walking a wire at 2. 4, I was walking on my own.
That's
right.
Yes. Child.
Yes.
Baby.
But was always told don't walk without a balancing pole, and the reason why is our family's really known for pyramids. We have the world record for the 8-person pyramid we did in Japan in 2001, and we performed the 7-person pyramid fairly regularly. So I was always persuaded it created bad habits to walk without a pole, because when you're doing a pyramid you got to be solid. When you don't have a balancing pole, you move all over and wiggle. So I was always pushed the other direction.
When you did the beach walk, I was there broadcasting on one of our sister radio stations, and I was at the beginning with you. I basically made the same walk, only I was down on the beach. And you started out walking backwards, and I was telling our anchors, I said, guys, Nik just started to walk, but he's walking backwards. He walked about 10 feet backwards.
Yes.
And they're yelling at me, and I'm hearing it in my ear. Are you crazy? I said, I'm not the one who's crazy. So why did you walk backwards at the beginning?
I got up there, and I always kind of test the wire with my wire shoes. So I put my foot on the wire, and it seemed extremely slippery. And there was a lot of sand caked onto that cable from the rigging the day before.
Plus, it was a new cable, wasn't it?
It was a new cable, which anytime we get a new cable, they're galvanized, but they always have a little bit of lubrication on them from the machinery that makes them. So it caked all the sand caked on there. So when I tested the wire, it seemed really slippery. So my thought was, I'm going to take one of my shoes off and see if it feels safer to walk barefoot. I'd never done a walk like this in shorts for one, but I thought it's a beach walk. It's kind of cool. I'm going to wear, and I was going to wear my sunglasses until the last minute, and I thought, well, if they get really sweaty, that's a bad thing, so I better take them off. But I was thinking it'd be cool to walk barefoot too. So I took one shoe off and kind of tested, and realized, you know what, there is still better grip with the wire shoes. So I put my shoe back on and then made the walk. But that was all about testing to make sure that I felt safe and secure. When I was up there, I was thinking, gosh, it would stink if I'd have to postpone this because of the, it being slippery. But then I went back and thought afterwards, I'm proud of myself that I thought that way, that I was willing to postpone. I wasn't willing to push that extra limit. People see what we do and they say, you're crazy, you're insane. But the truth is, we really think logically. We really think through things. They're extremely engineered, what we do. And we train in 90-mile-an-hour winds. We train in heavy gusts of 60-miles-an-hour winds. So it's not as if we go up there careless and go, well, let's see what happens. We really do put a lot of thought into it. So that was my thought, was, hey, if I have to postpone this, I will.
Last time I talked to you, I asked you, how did you train for Niagara Falls? How did you train for Atlantic City? And you said you really didn't train specifically for those things because you train every day.
That's correct. For Atlantic City, it was a fairly average walk. Niagara Falls was a bit unique, but I have trained every day, 5 days a week pretty much for most of my life. So all of that comes into play, all the experience. But Niagara Falls was very unique because as you saw the walk here on the beach, there were stabilizer cables about every 30 to 50 feet. Well, we didn't have those in Niagara Falls, so that cable moved a lot more uniquely than I was used to. So I did do some specific training for that. I rigged a cable the same distance, just low to the ground with the same tension, so I could get used to that movement and such. And then I had fire trucks come in and spray me down, and I also had a heavy wind machine there. But other than that, for the most part, it's just the training that we go through every day, every week, is to prepare for all of these walks.
If we had had a heart monitor on you for Niagara Falls or for Atlantic City, what would it have been registering while you were doing that walk?
You would have probably been shocked because it would have been normal. Actually, I'm friends with David Blaine and other people that do big events like this, and our hearts actually, for the most part, slow down before that.
There's no adrenaline? You don't get an adrenaline?
You get a little bit of adrenaline, but once I get on that wire, it's so peaceful, so relaxing. But a lot of times, yeah, I mean, our hearts will just slow down a little bit, and it just, you get into this sort of zone.
What about, I mean, you've been doing this for 31 of your 33 years. Mm-hmm. What about the sense of complacency you must feel? You do this every day.
Yeah, you know, complacency can become a dangerous thing because it becomes so normal.
Right.
I was just performing, thinking about, well, you know what, I need to get back on my diet again. As I was up on the wire, it's just, it's so normal. That becomes dangerous because it becomes so normal, but you're still risking your life. Even 20 feet, we've had people fall, and one of my uncles paralyzed from falling from nearly that height. So you can still get hurt really bad. So it's important that we always stay focused, and it's one of the challenges of doing something your entire life.
When you're doing it, are you looking at each step you take, or are you looking like down the wire?
You know, it depends on the situation. Generally speaking, I look as far in front of me as I can. Mm-hmm. But in a walk like I did on the beach, I'm actually looking about 2 ropes forward, and I actually look around. You saw me. I was looking down and talking to the guys and talking to people in the audience even, but try to focus on that wire because it moves a little more. And in an act like this, I look as far away from me as I can, but this is, only a 32-foot long cable.
And I also noticed that as you started going uphill on the Atlantic City walk, you were calling down cues to the folks that were holding those tension wires.
Yeah,
I had
a couple of guys down there that were fairly, they'd done walks with me, but fairly unexperienced in a walk like this. And in a walk like this, because of the distance that we were at, it drooped down quite a bit, as you saw in the middle. And what was happening is those ropes were actually angled downhill, so they were sliding and hitting me in the toes, and you couldn't really see it, but there's a couple spots where they slid, and even behind me as I was walking past them, they would slide, and I could feel that wire moving. So I was trying to get them to teach them more than anything that you need to go uphill, so those ropes, they're not going to slide downhill if you have that angle on those ropes.
All right, you mentioned that they mentioned at the end of the show here, and you mentioned you're going to do the Grand Canyon. That's something you've been wanting to do.
I've been wanting to do for a long time. I've actually had the permits for about 5 years now to do that, and it is something that will happen, and most likely May, June at the latest, I would say. I'll be the first person in the world to walk across the Grand Canyon.
What's the distance?
It's over half a mile. We're working on, we have a broad location where the permit covers. However, we're trying to find a place that for TV it can't be too long because, you only have so much airtime.
Mm-hmm. Any special challenges or at the end of the day, is a walk?
No, they're all different. Everyone's unique, and you have to treat them all that way too. You never know what to expect. There's a lot of updrafts, a lot of side winds and such because of the way that the canyon flows. So there'll be some training for more upwinds than anything for that walk.
I got to preface it with a story that years and years ago, I love big game fishing. I love going offshore. And I was offshore one day with some people, and one had never been off there before. And when we finished fishing for marlin and tuna and got the boat all cleaned up, before we started to come in, and we're pretty far out, I said, you know what, I got to cool off. And I just jumped into the water, swam around the boat and jumped back on. And someone said to me, do you know that the water is 3,000 feet deep here? And I went, yeah. And he said, well, why did you do that? I said, well, the water in the swimming pool is 6 feet deep, and you can drown there.
That's right.
And you can drown here, so it can take a little longer to hit bottom.
Absolutely right.
So I would imagine the same principle applies.
It is very true. Whether you're 10 feet or 1,000 feet, you got to respect it the same.
Let's talk a little bit about the Wallenda family experience here at the Tropicana until September 22nd. This is an international show, isn't it?
It really is. We've got gauchos from Argentina. We have an amazing contortion hand balancer that's from Cuba. Of course, our family's from Germany, but performers from all over the world doing sort of a variety show, maybe a cirque sort of feel to it, and of course featuring my family.
It has both. You're right. It does have a cirque feel to it, but it does have a variety show feel to it. I think all you need is a girl singer, and you've got it.
That's it. You got it.
You've got it covered. One more thing before I let you go. You've been doing this, again, since you're 2 years old. Up until the time you were 18, you really didn't have a choice. Then you had a choice as what you could have done for a career. You actually thought about becoming a pediatrician, didn't you?
I did. I thought about going a total different direction. Business was not incredible at that point, and I saw my parents working really hard and not bringing home a huge paycheck, or not so much that, but working really hard to get the next engagement. There was a lot of time between engagements.
The reward wasn't worth the risk, maybe?
Well, exactly.
Yeah, okay.
But we were invited to go back and recreate the 7-person pyramid in Detroit, Michigan. The family had fell in 1962. We were invited in 97 to go back in 98 to recreate that pyramid. Same building, same arena, right where our family, 2 members died, 1 paralyzed. And I remember going back there and training for it, being excited about it, and looking down and seeing satellite trucks for miles, and the amount of people that showed up to see that event from all over the world came in to see that. And I remember going, if there's this many people interested in it, then I need to carry on this legacy. And that was when I made that decision that I was going to do it. But not only was I just going to do it, because our family's been doing this since Carl Wallenda, 3 generations since. We're still performing. Right. But a lot of people forget. I hear it all the time. The Wallendas are still around. And I made that commitment when I turned 18 that I was going to make sure that everyone in the world knew that the Wallendas were still around. And that's why I'm doing things like the Grand Canyon, like I did Niagara Falls, and there's many, many more things to come.
And is why you're doing Beyond the Falls, Nik Wallenda, the Wallenda Family Experience.
That's absolutely right. And again, I think it's important that the viewers know that it's a very family-friendly show. There's something for everyone in this
My
show.
5-year-old granddaughter is right, almost 5 years old granddaughter. She's right here and loving every minute of it. Nick,
Awesome.
I know you got it ready for another show.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Continued success.
Thank
you.
We'll
be watching you for the Grand Canyon.